Jason Reitman's Ghostbusters Afterlife promised to be a movie for the fans of the 1984 original, a love letter to what came before it and to continue the mythology in the original universe. When it released back in November, it did just that, pleasing Ghostbusters fans worldwide. It was a success, not only for the fans but for Sony Pictures and its finance, who disappointed with Paul Fieg's 2016 reboot. The reboot didn't resonate with most fans, along with losing millions of dollars due to the film performing poorly at the box office in consideration of the budget and additional costs. Today, we'll be looking at and going over why Ghostbusters Afterlife is a success for the fans and for Sony, and why the 2016 reboot was a failure on a massive scale. A quick message before we dive into this video: make sure you subscribe for much more content like this. If this video does well, you can surely expect much more Ghostbusters related videos. I'd love to make one going over the history of cancelled sequels one day. And I would also like to say rest in peace to Ivan Reitman, director of Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, who passed away during the writing of this video. His films will be remembered as cult classics for decades still to come. Now let's get right into this video. Before we analyze the success of Afterlife and why exactly it was successful, we must first look at how we came to this point in the cancellation of Sony's planned Ghostbusters cinematic universe, all because of the reboot's poor reception. When the possibility of a proper third installment to the Ghostbusters franchise seemed near impossible, then freshly cemented by the passing of co-writer and actor of the original films Harold Ramis, Sony moved to reboot the franchise in a new universe with fresh new faces in charge of the film and in front of the camera. If you want the full behind the scenes on this, I highly suggest the linked videos by Midnight's Edge, which go into full detail. Nonetheless, Sony had big plans. Quickly, a director was picked for this new entry: Paul Fieg, most well known for Spy and Bridesmaids, which are both satire comedies and borderline parodies. Spy being a spoof of the James Bond franchise, and Bridesmaids being a female parody of The Hangover. This is who was chosen to be at the helm and direct the new Ghostbusters reboot. The outrage and controversy was now bound to be unleashed on the studio, as news broke that the film would take place in a separate universe, serve as a reboot, and star an all-female cast. Fans were furious. The world of Ghostbusters they knew and loved, even grew up with, was now going to be disregarded in favor of the new plans going forward. Already not sitting well with the fans, Paul Fieg took to Twitter and striked back at the people who weren't on board with his film, calling them man-children who live in their mother's basement, to misogynists, to crybabies, and even a-holes. This time of anger and vulnerability due to Backlash only further hurt his film's reputation and caused more to agree not to watch it. It was on March 3rd, 2016 when Sony and Fieg got a first-hand look at how many were against their reboot with the first official trailer.
My name is Erin Gilbert, Doctor of Particle Physics at...
The trailer took the world by storm, receiving an insane amount of dislikes, even becoming the most disliked movie trailer in YouTube history at the time. It's assumed to have had 1.3 million dislikes by the time YouTube removed the feature. Paul Fieg took note of this response and once again only shot himself in the foot with rage-filled rants on Twitter. July 15th, 2016, the movie received its release in most countries. Besides many fans of the original not viewing the movie, most notably James Rolfe, whose video on the matter was either supported or hated, fans who did watch the film upon its release criticized it heavily, while professional critics were in favor of the film and its female empowerment, despite some obvious stereotypes and portraying men as dumb in the subject to most of the jokes. Whether the movie is good or not is rightfully open to the viewer's own personal perception of it, but the majority of opinions, mostly from original fans, were all extremely negative, as the film didn't manage to capture the spirit of Ghostbusters. The negativity now surrounding the movie caused the box office to reflect it, and only cement what its fate would be. Paul Fieg's Ghostbusters, promoted under the exact same title as the original, had an estimated budget of $144 million. That is $4 million more than the first Iron Man's estimated $140 million. With the budget of a big summer blockbuster, the film had to perform very well in order to break even and bring in a profit, which it sadly did not do for Sony. The film ended up making $229 million, which is more than its stated budget, but with the other additional elements such as marketing and other production costs that weren't included in the initial budget, it is reported by Wikipedia that the film lost over $70 million, making it a bomb and a failure for Sony, costing them their own money. The failure of the reboot was a drastic loss for Sony, a monumental one, as they still had big ambitions that were now crushed. With the sheer success of Marvel's shared cinematic universe, the MCU, which all their films took place in and often would cross over, many other production studios and companies jumped to having their own shared universe with their own licensed IPs, hoping for the same success. Warner Brothers tried to do it with DC and miserably failed, and Sony took a jab at it too. Sony's first attempt was with The Amazing Spider-Man, specifically the sequel, which set up multiple plausible crossover and spin-off films, creating a much larger universe of planned films with Spider-Man characters. That was until the movie was received horribly and was underwhelming for the studio at the box office. Sony then moved to its next big thing that they owned, which was Ghostbusters. The 2016 film was to spawn 2 more sequels, an all-male spin-off and an animated feature, presumably in the same universe. According to Den of Geek, the all-male film was going to be potentially led by Chris Pratt and Channing Tatum. Alleged rumors believe that there would eventually be an Avengers-style crossover between the male and female teams to take down Gozer the Gozerian, the antagonist in the 1984 film. It was because of the reboot's failure that all these big ambitious plans were cancelled and scrapped. It was in 2018, 2 years after the reboot when it seemed like the franchise was finally dead, that Dan Aykroyd would begin mentioning and teasing that he, Bill Murray, and Ernie Hudson would respectfully reprise their original roles as the Ghostbusters in a new script that was in development. Yet just like all the possible sequels Aykroyd teased over the years, it was neglected as something that would probably never happen. That was until it was announced in 2019 that a true third installment would be made, a direct sequel to what came before. This news was exciting and only got better as the director was revealed to be Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the first 2 films. It seemed like a true passing of the torch film was finally going to happen, pleasing most, if not almost every fan. The stories and details of the new movie were kept under wraps, but it was reported that the film would follow a family in a small town as they discover relics of the Ghostbusters. The film was working under the production title of Rust City and was first advertised as Ghostbusters 2020, the year of its initial release. All was going well and spirits were high for what was to come. After multiple delays due to the global situation everyone has faced, Reitman's Ghostbusters Afterlife released November 19, 2021, and it was a hit. The film was made on a $75 million budget as reported by Forbes, and the site also went on to say that the film grossed $88 million domestically and $116 million worldwide in its first 10 days. Consideration is also due since the film opened in many locations where restrictions were still in place, dwindling the theater capacity. On its 78th day in theaters, Ghostbusters Afterlife managed to surpass the 2016 reboot at the domestic box office, bringing in $128,357,754. This makes the film beyond a financial success for Sony. With a much smaller budget than the reboot, a $69 million difference to be exact, Sony managed to break even and pull in a great profit even while theater capacity was still limited. Ghostbusters Afterlife currently sits at $196,755,329 at the time of recording this. Serving as a direct continuation in the Ghostbusters universe, Ghostbusters Afterlife captivated fans of the original by its original mythology from the first 2 films, places and people, and direct connections to what came before in a very respectful and honorable way. This is what the fans wanted from the start, what they've always been asking for. Part of the reason why the reboot wasn't cared for as much and received the response it did. It's a legacy film that stands strong and has some amazing performances, providing a fun, sometimes comedic, and a horror-filled adventure. Following the family of Egon Spengler, we see his grandchildren slowly unravel the mystery of who the Ghostbusters were and the evil they fought. And as by prophecy, the evil was now returning in the small town Egon ran off to protect and defend, which eventually resulted in his death. Jason Reitman knew exactly what this film needed to please fans because he himself is a fan. The budget was much smaller because they didn't go all out on special effects and CGI, something the reboot relied heavily on. Reitman opted for the approach of practical effects, something the original movie was made on, looking infinitely more better than the CGI mess that 2016 had. It had the original actors playing their original characters, and it was a nice, heartfelt, and touching tribute to Harold Ramis. It honored him well, while not being afraid to portray his character as a different man than we knew him in the 80s, along with amazingly bringing back Harold Ramis with stunning special effects that didn't take anyone out of the moment and remained respectful. This is what we needed from the start. Understanding what the fans want to see is crucial, especially when continuing the name of a franchise. Being a financial success and a hit with fans, Ghostbusters Afterlife will most likely receive a sequel in the coming years. This isn't just because Sony loves money, which they certainly do, but Afterlife strategically sets up not only a sequel, but a cinematic universe that Sony so desperately wants. The film ends on a closing note that it could most certainly be the conclusion of the franchise, its stories, and its characters, but it's the post-credit scene that sets up endless endeavors in this world. Returning back to New York and seeing the containment grid is still intact at the firehouse, this could very well set up a new team of Ghostbusters located in New York, headed by Ernie Hudson's Winston Zeddemore. The reason that this is entirely possible is because Ernie Hudson himself confirmed that he would like to head what comes next and be a mentor-type character, even mentioning that he would like to be the Nick Fury of Ghostbusters, as said in an interview with Yahoo Movies. Undoubtedly, this is a great idea for the character, who is now a businessman. Jason Reitman and Ghostbusters Afterlife co-writer Gil Keenan have also signed on to a producing deal with Sony, meaning if they aren't the ones to write and direct, they will still have a spot of producing the next installment. While the critics' rating of Afterlife is less than stellar, rating it a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, mainly in protest of the Women reboot not getting a sequel, it's apparent that the fans loved it with a 94% and over 5,000 verified ratings. This is why critic ratings are majorly no longer trusted, as they tend to be very biased. But if the fans love it, that means they'll surely want to see more, and that's what Sony is hoping to produce. More Ghostbusters. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below on 2016's failure and Afterlife's success. Also, let me know if you think we'll see a sequel or a spin-off in a new Ghostbusters cinematic universe. I'd love to hear it and interact with your opinions. If you did enjoy this video essay and critical analysis, please leave a like and consider subscribing. This was my first video essay and critical analysis, and I hope to have more coming soon, especially revolving around Ghostbusters. Make sure you check out my next video essay, which will be going over the Home Alone franchise. It's a great video that has a lot of thought and research put into it. That will be it for today though. Thanks everyone for watching, stay safe, and have a great day.